All right, ladies and gentlemen, how else can we come back from a break without coming right in to high hopes there? Our man Harry Kalas sang that every time the Phillies would win. And speaking of Harry Kalas, the famous Phillies play-by-play announcer, we have his successor on the line right now. Tom McCarthy has done a phenomenal job with the Philadelphia Phillies, and we bring him on right now. Tom, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm great. Opening day. It's always a good day.
Opening day, fantastic. Cannot thank you enough for coming on with us. I'm in studio here with Ethan and Andrew, and we just have a couple questions. We're not going to take too much of your time because we know you got a game in a couple hours, but a couple things we want to ask you. So we're going to jump right into it if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right,
fire
cool.
Away.
All right, thank you. So Tuesday, you tweeted, and I quote, "invigorating to be back." So what are you expecting this season? I mean, you have the best seat in the house right up behind home plate every single game, 162 of these games. You're there for them. What is your expectation for this season?
Yeah, I think every year that you come back for opening day, it doesn't matter what you've done in the offseason, you have this optimism that, it's like the first day of school, it's the first day of college. There's an excitement of what can happen in the future. But I think it's added to this year because of all the moves the Phillies made. I mean, this kind of likens it back to, the 2009, 2010, 2011 seasons where there was great anticipation, where the chest was pounded out as
Absolutely.
far as it can be because you have the pieces. And obviously now it's time for everybody to just put it together, but you have the pieces to be successful. And that, to me, it's an incredible feeling.
It really is. And, the game starts 3:05 today, but I want to talk about the manager, Gabe Kapler here. And I want to see, in your humble opinion, how does he fit this team? Because a lot of people forget last season's home opener when he was introduced by Dan Baker, he was booed. They did not like what he was doing with this team. So coming into this season now with the assets that we acquired, Hoskins, obviously from last year, but, people like Harper and Real Muto and Segura, McCutchen, how does Gabe Kapler fit this team, and how does Gabe Kapler's ability to kind of bring these players together benefit this team for the better?
Well, I think that he's got a year under his belt, which, as all of us know, every time we do a job or do, or go to a class or do whatever, I mean, we're better a year later just because as long as we're open-minded and we understand what the positives, what the negatives have been. And he to me is very self-aware of what his strengths are, what his strengths were last year, what his weaknesses were last year. And I think he's consciously tried to work on it. The one thing about him that I think stands out compared to, let's say, other managers is that he is an over-communicator. He does go out of his way to over-communicate to the players, to the front office, to us in the media. That, to me, is one of his strengths. And I think that in this day and age, that's huge. Now, game-wise, does he have to improve in certain areas? I think he'll admit that he does, but I think his lineup is so different this year than last year. You're probably going to see some switches where you say, why are we doing that? Because you do that with every manager. But I think you're going to see less, and I think you're going to see more of a set lineup 1 through 5. Now, 6, 7, and 8 could be different each day, but I think 1 through 5 is going to be the set lineup that you'll see most days moving into the first month of the season. So I think that's where things will be different for him. The guys like him. I mean, they like the clubhouse. They like the atmosphere. They like the work that he puts in. I mean, he's here at 5:30 every morning, he and Rob Thompson. So I think that's the big thing, guys, that he's a year older. Hopefully he's a year wiser, and I think he's got a better team, which makes every manager better. I don't care who you are.
Tom, it's Ethan. Appreciate you for coming on. Let me tell you, I am excited for our Fighting Phils. Growing up watching the Phils, this is going to be awesome to see them back where they were in 2008, 2007, 06, and up until 10. So we're very excited. I just got a couple of questions for you. I want to talk about Jake Arrieta, having a bounce back year, and if you think Pivetta is going to be a breakout star and be able to, turn into something that the Phils want him to turn into.
I think that he has to be. I think Pivetta needs to have a solid year. Obviously, last year his fastball was one of the best ones in baseball when he commanded it, and I think that's a big deal. I think the one thing I noticed in spring training with him is that, how they talk about, I'm going to sit 94, I'm going to sit 95, we should all be that lucky. He wasn't just trying to sit 94, 95, like he was firing 98, 99. And I think that that's something to look at. I think he's going to kind of let it fly this year, at least to start. The anticipation is from everybody in the clubhouse, from the front office, because I wondered, why didn't they make a move to bring in a starting pitcher or two during the offseason? But they're really confident in what they have in the starters. And I think they're confident with some of the younger guys that are ready to take that next step down to AAA. But I think Nick has to have a big year. I mean, I think he has to reverse his numbers from last year from a win-loss standpoint. Listen, the bullpen has a lot of depth. They can go to it early. But I think 1, 2, and 3 in this rotation, you'd like to at least get them deeper in the game, more so than whoever the 4, which is Zach Eflin, or the 5, which right now it's Vince Velasquez, whether they are. So I think Pivetta has to have a big year. I'm interested to see what happens with Arrieta. I was really excited the other day the way he pitched in spring training. And again, I know it's spring training, but that was the Rays lineup basically for opening day. And aside from the home run to Kiermaier, I mean, he had some really good stuff. Like the ball was moving the way he needs to make it move. So I hope he has a bounce back. I mean, there were a couple months there where he was really good, but there were a couple months where he was not up to his level.
Right. I remember in the middle of the season last year, he was struggling, and then towards the end, he found his rhythm and was able.
Yeah, there were times where he did, and I think for him, he always talks about timing, and more than any other pitcher, I think that the Phillies have, timing is huge because of his motion, his crossfire, all those things. So, again, those are two guys that they're going to need to lean on. Now, I will say this: if for some reason the Phillies have problems with their starting pitching, they've already shown that they're not afraid to go out and get somebody else to shore it up. So that could be a move too. But I'm excited for Pivetta because I think it's time for him to take that next step, and I think he realizes it. And I think from an Arrieta standpoint, I mean, I think that the one thing that I noticed is he's extremely competitive. So hopefully that competitive nature will fire him up this year and get him to where he would like to be moving into the heart of the season.
I had to ask you, I know you have a busy day of preparation for this game at 3 o'clock. We just want to ask you a couple more questions, and this question is important. We got our boy Harper coming to town. You've been watching him for years now on the other side of the team. 18 games a year you've been watching this guy. And Bryce Harper, he's coming to town, but who are you most excited to see take the field as a Philly for the first time besides Harper? I know Harper's a given, but who are you most excited to see come on the Fightin' Phils this season that wasn't here before?
Yeah, I think it's easy. I think JT Realmuto, honestly. I mean, I think that Phillies led the league in errors for catchers last year, led the league in pass balls for catchers last year. This guy is the top offensive catcher in the National League. I mean, Buster Posey obviously had somewhat of a down year last year, but Realmuto, he's the real deal. And I think that he can make the biggest impact out of anybody on the Phillies roster, aside from Harper, but can make the biggest impact offensively and defensively. So I'm fired up to see him behind the plate.
Yeah, and, a couple things that are brought up again, Tom, is that when the Phillies acquired these guys, it took a lot of the pressure off of some of the current players that were on this roster last year. I've read something online, I think with NBC Sports Philadelphia, an article that Odubel Herrera is looking to have a better year than he's ever had because of the pressures that were alleviated off of him because of these guys. So my question to you is, which Philly who was on the team last year, so Hoskins, Nola, Herrera, Aaron Altair possibly, Maikel Franco, Jake Arrieta, who are you looking at to have the most dominant year?
I think it's Hoskins because I think he has support in front of him and behind him now offensively, which I didn't think he really had last year. I think the fact that he's moving back to his natural position at first base also helps him too. So to me, it's him. As far as Odubel goes, he's going to bat sixth today. He's probably going to bat sixth or seventh during the course of the season. If he could do what he did up until the 18th of May last year, I mean, it's an outstanding year. There's no question about that. Obviously, he had the top batting average up until the 18th of May. He had the worst batting average from the 18th on in all of baseball among qualified hitters. So, I think he's going to benefit being down in the lineup, not hitting third, not hitting second. Listen, the guy's got a lot of talent. He's very quirky, too. I don't think he is fazed by pressure, but I do think it's going to help him that there's other guys in this lineup now.
Hey, Tom, this is Andrew Kent. Just thank you so much for joining us today. It's
no problem.
I'm really happy to have you on here. We know that the Phillies, this division is loaded. We know the Mets, they're going to be there. The Braves just won the division last year, made a playoff appearance. The Nationals are still looked at as a really great team. So which team right now would you say in this division is the biggest threat to take away a potential playoff bid for the Phillies?
I think it's the Nationals only because of their pitching. You know, the Braves are starting 2 rookies this weekend, and I'm not saying that they're not going to be good, but you know, the Nationals to me have the rotation if everybody's healthy. They still have a lot of offense. You know, Robles makes the opening day roster, so that he adds a little bit of a spark from a rookie standpoint. So to me, it's the Nationals, and I think it's more because of their pitching and the fact that they have all this offense back more than anything else. So it's going to be great. I think the division is awesome. I mean, obviously the Marlins are probably the lightest of the teams, but I do think that between the Phillies, Braves, and Nats, it's going to be a pretty good run, you know, for whoever's going to make the postseason, either as the division winner or as the wild card.
And Tom, last year, I mean, you had like I said earlier, the best seat in the house, but is it considered the best seat in the house when you look back at the end of last season, right? The team, and I mean, I'm not quoting here, right? Gabe Kapler admitted to Angelo that those last couple games sucked. Just how the team kind of deteriorated in front of our eyes, and obviously bringing in these players. Now that basically the lineup 1 to 5, I mean, those guys are our key players, but forget them for a second. Why do you have faith in this team that they are surpassed that kind of the thinking that they can deteriorate this way and like they did last year? And why do you think, is it mental? Is it Gabe Kapler, another year under his belt, or is it just leadership that players like Harper and Arrieta bring to this team?
Yeah, I think it's leadership, and I think it's just that they're better players. I think that the players they brought in just are better. You know, Real Muto's better than Jorge Alfaro, at least, you know, last year. McCutcheon's better defensively in left field than Reese was. Reese moving over to first base makes him more comfortable, and he's probably going to produce more than Carlos Santana did. Gene Segura is going to upgrade shortstop beyond our expectations, which is awesome. And then you add Harper. I mean, I think that's a big deal right there, obviously by itself, but with all these other pieces, it's an even bigger deal. So I think they have experience. I think the fact that they're just better players is just going to make this a more competitive season from start to finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. I completely get where you're coming from.
One last
so that's to me is the big thing.
One last question for you, Tom. It's Ethan again. I want to know, is Abdul? You think Abdul's going to have that role the entire season in center field, or do you think we're going to?
No. I think if he struggles, I think Roman Quinn, when he comes back, will be in center field. I really do. You know, but if he doesn't struggle, then yeah, I think he will. But I think that his leash is pretty short this year, guys. I think if they have somebody else to put in there, because they could put McCutcheon there for a short period of time, but obviously they've got Altair, who didn't have a great year last year. But I do think when Roman Quinn comes back, Odubel will have a battle on his hand with Roman for that spot.
Now, Tom, 2 more questions for you here. So your son, your wife says, hey, I want a Phillies jersey. You're at the ballpark every day, get me a Phillies jersey. They say, I don't care what player it is, just get me one. Whose jersey are you going to get? Like, if you obviously can't wear a jersey up in the booth. I saw on Twitter you posted that pullover you're wearing today, looking snazzy, right? But what jersey would you get for your family, your wife, your son, whatever it might be? Who's your favorite player going into this year?
Well, it's Hoskins. I mean, and you know, it's I always look at my daughters because they're the ones that wear them more than my boys do. My boys are older now, but it's Hoskins. I mean, he's always he's been my favorite player the last couple of years. He's a tremendous guy. To me, that's a big deal. I think he's the foundation piece of this team, along with Harper. So yeah, for me, it's Hoskins.
All right, and a last question here for you, Tom. I just, you know, a lot of times, being obviously a freshman here at Temple University, having the capabilities to, you know, broadcast some of the basketball games, the football games. I mean, looking at someone like you, at your resume. I mean, working with people like Harry Callis, who then passed away, and you kind of stepped up into that role. I mean, have you blinked? Have you really pinched yourself and like, wow, this is what I get to do day in and day out? I mean, you do the Phillies, you do NCAA. I mean, walk us through that. Like, I can't imagine how that would feel, kind of having your dreams come true, if you want to use that term. I mean, you know, just the guys you get to work with, the team you get to work with, you know, the ownership. I just can't imagine how that would be.
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling, guys. I mean, this is my 19th year in the big league, my 27th year as a broadcaster professionally, counting my time in the minor leagues. I sent out a bunch of emails today and a bunch of text messages and made a bunch of phone calls on my way down here, you know, to the people who have helped me get to this point. And I've told them how lucky I am that this is the life that I lead. I mean, I went to college to play baseball with the hopes of playing professionally. That didn't happen. Obviously, I found that out very early in my college career. But to have the life I have broadcasting baseball, but also doing the NFL and college basketball, this is I'm truly blessed every day, and I never ever take it for granted. Like I said, this is my 27th opening day in professional baseball, my 19th in the big league, and every single year is a special start for me, and it's a special start for my family too.
Well, we love watching you, Tom, especially my dad and I. We love sitting on the couch hearing your voice. So we appreciate you. My buddy actually works the ticket sales for the Phillies, and he says he sees you an hour before. His name is Cameron. He's a tall black guy, so I don't think you'll be able to miss him, but I'm going to tell him to introduce himself to you.
All right, that'd be great.
He loves you, so I'm gonna make sure of that.
And last comment for us here, Tom. I mean, we are obviously looking up to guys like you and, Scott Fransky, Larry Anderson, Ben Davis, all those guys in the booth. Can you give us a little bit of advice for going into this industry, specifically wanting to be that play-by-play announcer for whatever sport it might be? But, I mean, you are there. You live, you breathe, you know everything broadcasting. Can you give us a little bit of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are doing everything you need right now. I mean, I've told people that one of the biggest things that I did was hosting an ESPN show for 3 years while I was doing the play-by-play, because it helped me with so many things. It helped me with pacing. It helped me with interviews. It helped me just interacting with people in the community. The biggest thing is getting started early and getting behind a microphone. You guys are at a position now where there are so many avenues for you to broadcast, whether it's podcasting, whether it's doing games in college. I mean, both of my boys are broadcasters. One is broadcasting in Lehigh Valley as their lead radio guy. And to see what they're able to do in college to prepare themselves, I mean, it's beyond anything that we ever had when I was younger. But to me, the biggest thing is doing exactly what you're doing now. Get behind a microphone as early as possible. Get comfortable. Take as many speech classes as you can. That, to me, is the best classes I ever took in college were my speech classes, because it gave me a chance to speak in front of 500 or 500 people and not even blink about it. So, just keep doing it. And every opportunity that comes your way, even if you don't have the experience to do it, just sell yourself that you could do it. Just say, yeah, I'll do it, and just figure it out as you go on.
Well, Tom, from everyone here at WHIP, we just want to thank you for giving us your time today. You better believe we're going to be listening to you and the crew up in the booth with you today. We love listening to you guys, and again, thank you so much for coming on. It couldn't have gone better from our end or your end. Just want to thank you one more time, and hopefully we'll work together soon in the future, maybe in the fall semester, talking about this Phillies team.
All right, buddy. All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Have a good one.
Yep. See ya.